Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept3D. On this podcast, we discuss higher ed marketing topics around creating and capturing demand. Before we jump in, we do have a quick message from our sponsors over at Concept3D. So Concept3D's purpose is to foster connections through technology, elevating the way businesses connect with their community by leveraging the power of events and location. If your school needs an updated interactive map, virtual tour, or centralized events calendar, please reach out to concept3d.com. So my name is Shiro. I'm Shiro Hattori, and I will be your podcast host today. And I'm super excited for our guest speaker today. He is the Director of Marketing Services at Harper College. He's responsible for launching the institution's first brand positioning campaign and leading a large team that completes over 1,400 projects each year. Please welcome Mike Barzacchini.
Hey, Shiro, thanks so much. It's a great opportunity to be here with you all and with everybody that's tuning in to listen or watch this. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. And I love to ask this icebreaker for each episode. So I'll start off with this again. What do you love about higher ed?
Well, I love this question because when I'm out talking to folks, peer institutions, or whether I'm doing a workshop, a lot of it revolves around storytelling. And what I always say to folks is, in higher education, we have the best stories. That includes our student stories, our alumni stories, but also the stories of the people that we work with every day, the faculty and the staff and people on my team. I think that whole idea of, it became trendy for a while, but before it was trendy, it was still in style. It's even more powerful now than ever before, is that idea of storytelling and compelling stories. And in higher ed, virtually like no other industry, we have the best stories.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. And that's a great lead in. I don't know if you're trying to hand it off to me just so perfectly, but in your intro, I said you launched the institution's first brand positioning campaign, and now that's 23 years in the making. So can you tell us a little bit more about developing a brand and telling stories and why it's so important?
Sure, absolutely. Yes, a little unique. I know there are a lot of folks in higher ed that are long tenured at the same institution, but I've been at Harper 23 years. I joke that I've been here 23 years on my 5-year plan because I never had an idea that I'd be here 23 years. But when I arrived, the college had just done its first big piece of institutional research to kind of see what the community thought about us. We had just came off a failed referendum. We do a tax renewal referendum every 10 years or so to renew the community support, which is important for us in terms of building and maintaining our campus and providing services. And we had a failed referendum, and for that and other reasons, enrollment was kind of stagnant. We did our first kind of comprehensive kind of awareness and preference survey, and we surveyed a cross section of groups: current students, alumni, prospective high school students, prospective adult students, community partners, parents. And when asked what Harper was best known for, the only answer across all of those groups that came back as a double-digit response was don't know or nothing. So I walked into a situation where we really didn't. The good news was people did not like us. They just were indifferent about us. And as we did and so when we got kind of down into the nuts and bolts of that research, we asked things like, are stories about Harper students, well known? And there was 6%. People stories about our students didn't resonate with them. Stories or information about the quality academics or Harper's, quality faculty, things that we internally believed in, were resonating out there in the community weren't. And the research bared that out. So, that first brand launch, really from starting with no brand campaign at the institution with that first launch, we really built it around telling intentional stories about our alumni, about our students, about our faculty that spoke to the quality of education. And that's something that we've continued over these past 2 decades. So the brand platform and the foundational positioning and the theme have stayed consistent. But in that time, we've also evolved the brand about 7 or 8 different times. So we've evolved it off of that platform. And I think sometimes the mistake that institutions can make is feeling they need a complete brand, explode the brand and rebuild it from scratch. It's great if you're able to do that, but branding takes, a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience and time and a lot of resources. And a lot of times in higher ed, we don't have the resources to completely blow up that brand and rebuild it from scratch unless we have some type of a problem like we did when we walked in 2000. But I think that whole idea of a brand evolution off a consistent platform, I think can be really powerful, whether you're at your institution for 23 years, 8 years, 5 years, or fewer.
And when you say consistent platform, do you mean the messaging and the value and what Harper stands for, what you're communicating?
So internally in marketing, we have 3 brand principles that we developed basically when I first got here, that we still strive to adhere to today. And those 3 principles, which are really, kind of preliminary to the brand, are access, usability, and relevance. Really, that means building your brand messaging, your storytelling, your campaigns around the audience. I talk a lot about being audience obsessed. We can't obsess enough about our audience. Then from that, we developed, a positioning that because a community college and a lot of higher education institutions, we touch so many people and influence so many people beyond just what you might think of as traditional age students or that type of thing. I mean, in a community college, we have everything from a preschool to a summer camp to, programs for people later in life, as well as what you might think of as traditional programming. So we developed this positioning. Again, this is kind of in the background that the foundation of learning to enrich your life with the theme or the promise that no matter who you are or where you are in your life or what your goals are, we can help you move forward toward those goals through education. That's been consistent. Now, none of that's going to land on a billboard. None of that's going to land, as part of a broad consumer campaign. But that's the foundation we build from. And from that foundation, we've built, about 7 or 8 different campaign evolutions based on that consistent positioning. And what influences those, so that what kind of stays stable. I mean, it might tweak a little bit over time. I mean, we've had things like COVID. We've had a couple of recessions. We've had changes in culture and economy. But those foundations stay pretty stable. But what we're influenced by in those campaigns is building it off that stable foundation, but being influenced by going back and research with our audience, having discussions and conversations, learning more about them. The ways the institution has evolved with things like, online learning, with things like, credentials for careers, different kinds of services. So it evolves around that consistent positioning, but the positioning is comprehensive enough that we can continue to build branding off of that positioning.
Thank you for sharing that. And what are, in a similar survey, like what are students, employers, alumni, the community saying now, or even a few years later?
So that big piece of brand research that we did, we repeat that about every 3 to 4 years. We're a little off cadence now because of the pandemic. We're actually just finishing that research right now. I'm looking forward to seeing the results later this spring. Honestly, I didn't have any preconceived notions. I knew that those first 3 years we would move the needle, but 3 years is not a long time, right? When you're moving from 27% don't know or nothing. But when we resurveyed those same groups, a cross section of those same groups, what we found were the things that we were looking for, like are the accomplishments of our students well known? We were up in the 20%, somewhere in the 20 to 25%. When we looked at, does Harper have academic quality programs? We were, again, up over 25, 26%. Our faculty, we had high quality faculty that were experienced, that had real world experience, which was important to us, especially in our career programs. Again, we were in the 20 percentile, going from like single digits in just 3 years.
Right.
We've continued, and in our overall awareness and preference numbers, because we are being in the Chicago suburbs, Northwest Chicago suburbs, there are a lot of educational providers around us. So our unaided awareness and preference has continued to grow steadily over these years. We maintain a really high unaided first mention. We a very high aided first mention. Excuse me. And those key indicators, which do shift over time. I'll say a little bit more about that in just a minute. But those key indicators of quality academics, student accomplishments well known, faculty well respected and high quality, those have continued to grow and stay stable over that time. And as the college, I mentioned, as our priorities have shifted, like when, for instance, the research study that we did leading into another one of the, I should say too, that a year after we started the branding campaign, and there was more to it than just this, believe me, I don't think that what we do is a silver bullet and solved all these problems. But a year after that, where we had failed a referendum, there was some good strategy that went into that follow-up campaign on the campaign side. We were able to pass that referendum of support with our community just, I think, less than a year later after we had a failed referendum. So that was incredibly important to us. So that I also thought that was a kind of a validation. But when we were going back out again in the tough economic climate about a decade or so later, we worked in other themes that we wanted to make sure that through our communication and our branding, we're playing out in our research. For example, were we a good steward with community resources? Were we accountable? Were we a good partner? So those are the kinds of things too that as the institution's strategic goals shifted, our branding has also adapted to make sure that we're carrying forth those important messages, again, in a relevant way to the people that we're trying to connect with.
Thank you. And super.
I probably over-answered your question.
No. You're giving me specific examples, so I always appreciate that. And the super high level question might be very basic, but seeing these positive shifts from these single digit survey responses to understanding what Harper stands for, seeing that positive shift increase, why is this important for the institution? Like, why what's the ROI or the benefit of this?
Well, there's a lot of ways that you can measure ROI. It could be, we definitely at Harper, we definitely measure it in terms of, awareness and preference. Are we a preferred provider of education solutions in this area? So we measure that through the surveys. We measure that through our surveys and through other ways, but focus groups and those kinds of things. But also, how is enrollment tracking? And what are people saying? Once people do enroll here and complete, what are our student satisfaction scores saying? What do our alumni say? How engaged are we've seen. I have just a real talented colleague in our alumni area, and I think one of the biggest evolutions in higher ed, in community college higher ed, has been what institutions are doing with alumni programs. It's just the last decade or so, there's just been a lot of innovation, very true here at Harper. And to see how engaged our alumni are from a volunteer standpoint, from re-engaging with the institution, fundraising and donors, all those ways, including enrollment, are ways you measure your brand success. Then you look at things like, and I really think that where people, in higher ed, sometimes we feel like in our department, you mentioned the 1,400 projects. I joke with my staff that it's almost like being in the retail business. Like right now, we're already working on the holiday season, people will say summers are slow. No, summers aren't slow. We're already working on next spring and summer during the summer. And what I think, and so that's somewhat long-term, but still very annual based. I think when you think in terms of branding, and even if you only think you're going to be at your institution a short time, I would challenge us to think longer term. We went into a storytelling process about a decade or so ago with my colleagues in alumni and fundraising and in communications and community relations, and tried to develop 2 or 3 themes that cut across all the priorities of the institution. And we built our storytelling, and we've done that a few times now, around those themes. And leading into things like, well, we know our 50th anniversary is coming up in 2 years. We know we're going to have a presidential transition probably in about 3 years. We know we're going to have another referendum. How do we look ahead and also we know we're going to redo this research. Where do we want to stay stable? Where do we want to grow in terms of our perception and awareness? So start to build those bigger storytelling, overarching story themes that enter your brand campaigns, that enter your public relations or your communication strategy, your event strategy, all along the board, and be very intentional about that. And I think sometimes we get, I'll say I'm guilty of this. I'm the we in the statement. We'll get so mired down into trying to get this next project done or trying to launch the next semester's campaign. We have to make time to think even slightly further ahead. In 3 years isn't a big time horizon, but it can really make the difference when you're trying to talk about branding 3 to 5 years and looking ahead at what is going to be important to your community, your students and your institution, and trying to make sure that your brand efforts and your themes match that and actually advance that.
That's an amazing point. I definitely think, as a marketing team on my end, we're definitely looking pretty short term too. So that's definitely something we're trying to incorporate. I think this translates across, any company or any business or any organization. So it's a great challenge, Mike. I appreciate that.
It is a challenge, but and I will say that we didn't like. I wish I could say we took all day retreats and we had week-long summits. We didn't, but we tried to carve out
Mhm.
an intentional 45 minutes here and there to make sure we were carrying that through.
Yep.
And I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there, and I'm curious. You've seen 2 decades of marketing shifts, right? Where are you telling these stories now, and where are like the places or channels or the messaging, like where is it working the best and reaching the most people or prospective students?
That's a really interesting question for me to think about and answer. And I wish you could see the credenza behind me, because I've been pulling out a lot of our past branding work, because we just launched a new campaign, actually launched last fall, but really officially launched this spring. And 23 years ago, we were telling these stories on radio. We were telling them in billboards. We were telling them in direct mail. And not that we still don't use some of that now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really shifted a lot to social media. It's shifted a lot to the website. We've had really great success with short form storytelling on Instagram. We have a very talented digital content specialist and the rest of the team in terms of storytelling, who does great things on Instagram and on Facebook and other social media platforms. So that's been very popular to us. The other thing too is that's kind of the social media, the technology, the what's new and now kind of a thing. Video storytelling has always been strong, and the great thing about video storytelling is you can tell a 90-second story, but then you can chop it up into shorter forms, and you can tell it in a variety of areas and channels, including in person. What I always tell folks when we do a really great video project is, hey, listen, show this at your next event. Use 30 seconds of it to intro what you're going to do, and that kind of leads me to my next point, is because I think the other very low tech, in terms of perception way to advance your brand and tell these stories is through experience marketing, creating experiences for people that they can really get up close and personal with their brand, and you can get up close and personal with them and learn how they interact with who you are and what you're doing. It's incredibly compelling.
I'm not sure if you're hosting the call or not, because that was a perfect lead in. So Mike, what is experience marketing, and why would you challenge institutions that it should be a part of their marketing strategy as well?
Well, I think, along with stories being a huge part of higher ed, and we've got the best stories. I mean, higher ed really is all about experiences, whether that's in the classroom or a lab, or, whether it's a tour or an open house. And I think that, again, there's a lot of great experiences being delivered by higher ed institutions, across the country. And I think where sometimes we may miss an opportunity is not integrating, our other messaging and storytelling into these experiences, and vice versa. So we've done, engaging adults is always a challenge. Adults are time crunched. Adults still think that they can't do things like, get financial aid. They shouldn't fill out a FAFSA, although they should. They think that they're going to be in a classroom with people that are 20 years younger than them, and in most cases they're not. And especially now with online learning and those kinds of things. So, in fact, we've got one coming up again, I believe it's in late March or April. We have another Career Forward. We call them Career Forward events. And, they're events to basically, work with an adult at whatever stage they are in their career and their life, and try to help them get to the what's next. And what's great about, a college like Harper and so many of our colleges is that we have a lot of ways that we can fit what's next for them in terms of goals, in terms of delivering that online. So the ability to be in a place where there's an engaging speaker, maybe there's some good food, maybe there's a great program built around that, and have a chance just to have a conversation with a faculty member who welcomes you, into his or her program, who invites you in, is a great example of experience marketing. And we build a campaign around that, with direct marketing, with social media, with storytelling, and other kinds of things, both before, during, and after the event. So that's an idea of integrating the campaign. I know we talked in preparing for this, Shiro, we talked about what was called the College and Career Expo,
right?
And that was really targeted towards 4th through 8th graders. And it's getting that whole idea that, people of that age and parents need to be aware of the value of education post high school, and it needs to really be on their radar. And they need to see that they can aspire and be inspired to move forward toward that, and help them figure out what that actually means. So it was actually part of our college's strategic plan to engage more people, more parents and students of that age in higher education. So we created a day where basically families could come into our labs, work hands-on, with our chemistry faculty, with our graphic arts technology program, with our health careers folks. And it wasn't sitting in a room and listening to people. It was getting them there and holding reptiles in our bio lab. It was making slime. It was creating these full color posters with our graphic arts technology. Nice. And it became incredibly popular. And it also led to kind of us rethinking and revamping our elementary and middle school tours on campus. So on Fridays, where it's going to start here in a couple of weeks, we'll have anywhere from 120 to 300 students a day on campus going in and out of 4 different experiences throughout their time here on campus and learning about, what the college really is for them, whether it's coming here to enter a career program, whether it's, a full course of study leading to a degree, whatever it might be. And those work together. So that experience of, what's now called Experience Day, actually, the College and Career Expo, which is now called Experience Day, leads right into the tours and vice versa. And I think the numbers are rough here. And I should say the great news is, I helped start and nurture some of these things. We have an incredible community relations department, that now has kind of carried that forward to the next level. And it's probably about 3,000 to 4,000 students a year between the tours and Experience Day. And I may be a little low on that estimate, have some type of interaction with Harper College. And again, we're telling stories around that. We produced videos about Experience Day. We always do photo montages. There's been times where we've turned student photographers loose and gotten their view of what Experience Day is like. And so, the experience itself becomes incredibly valuable for connecting with your most important audiences and advancing your brand. And then the storytelling opportunity around those experiences, again, both before, during, and after, is incredible.
And how many students are currently enrolled, or what's an average for Harper in terms of a year, a school year?
So we look at credit and non-credit enrollment together. We serve somewhere, I think right now, and we're having a really good semester right now, which is great because like a lot of colleges, we were challenged a couple of semesters through the pandemic. But if you look at credit and non-credit enrollment, customized training, we're right around 30,000 students a year that we serve. So we're a big, and that's comprehensive numbers.
Right.
So that's
and
more
getting
than just the credit students.
3,000.
But we have so many of our students now. Exactly. And we have so many of our students now, the consumer has gotten to be so smart and so, really in terms of whether we're marketing to them or what they're looking for, we have to earn their attention more than ever before and earn that connection more than ever before. And the same is true when they're choosing classes. We have students that come, they go in and out of non-credit and credit programs, depending on what their goals are and what they're looking for. So it's interesting even how we look at enrollment now. And we have programs that start off as non-credit that can easily transform to credit programs if someone wants to pursue either a degree or an advanced credential. So it's really interesting. And that's the great thing. Maybe that's one of the reasons, besides an incredible team that I work with, one of the reasons that I've stayed so enthused. I've had the same title for 23 years. My job changes about every 6 months because of the way Harper is evolving. And I just had an incredible meeting this morning with academic colleagues and enrollment colleagues with a major corporate partner that's going to have us look at how we deliver and connect with different type of student in a different type of way with a different type of programming, and we do a lot of that also. So I think it's an incredible. You won't read it. We could go open our emails right now, Shiro, and see all the subject lines about the challenges in higher ed, and that's so true. But I think there's a flip side to all those challenges, which are just incredible opportunities to evolve, to innovate, to engage and connect. Whether the perception of higher ed is where it should be, we're more needed than ever before. And I think we can, as marketers and communicators, we have the opportunity to tell that story.
That's incredible. Yeah. And this kind of going back to this whole program and experience marketing you've developed around educating the importance of higher education. Like I had a conversation with Bristol Community College about a year ago now, but I asked, are you competing with local public universities, right, four-year institutions? And the smart marketer I was talking to at the time, it's like, no, we're not. We're competing against students who decide not to do higher education, and that kind of just reminded me of that conversation and how you're combating that or educating folks early on that if they have a perception to not really consider higher ed, that's the competition that I think a lot of two-year institutions are facing. So, or that's at least what I've heard from a few conversations. So it really reminded me of that.
I 100% agree. Even before the pandemic and before, like I was thinking back in the mid 2000s when trying to engage adult students, we would often say our biggest competitor was inertia, or just all the other competing things an adult student has to do. I have to pick up my kids from daycare. I'm working two jobs. I have whatever it might be. There's just so many other competing factors, and especially as adult students, we always say, "Well, I'll get around to that," but I got to put I have to put other people first, my family, my spouse, whatever it might be, my employer. And what's great is I think that, not just community colleges, because I see a lot of great things going on at four-year institutions. We're more than ever really trying to be, just like I said before with the marketing messaging, accessible, usable, and centered around the audience. And I think that's where, I think that more than anything is going to help higher ed come back when the market sees that we have solutions for them that fit them, that advance their life. And that's kind of the core of our brand positioning.
That's amazing. And kind of going back to what you've developed with the Experience Day now, 3,000 to 4,000 students, that's a massive amount of students, like every year that you're getting to come learn more about your program. So that's 10% of your current student body. That's huge. Are you?
Well, and that's students and parents. Well, for Experience Day, it's students and parents. So maybe 800 to 1,000 on Experience Day. That's full families, which I think is great. The same thing happens at our high school open house. We during the pandemic, when everything was virtual for a time, the really incredibly smart and creative person we have that leads our high school marketing created Destination Harper, which was a series of virtual experiences. But coming out of the pandemic, we kept that Destination Harper kind of branding for that market, and we're taking it on ground. And we just had our first full post-pandemic open house this past fall, and we had well over 1,000 high school students and family members, and that includes younger siblings, older siblings. And I think it's just so important to get these families on campus and have them see what the possibilities are for their children and experience what their children might be experiencing, and maybe open up an opportunity for them. Hey, maybe I need to come back and do this. Maybe I need to take a class on the weekend or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. Full engagement, full experiences. I think that's where we do, I think there's a nice lead through from storytelling to connecting to getting you here to experience it yourself.
That's amazing. And what are some of the ways you're promoting promoting folks to come to your experience marketing events? Are there like certain tactics that are working? Do you have to start by segmenting, adult learners, high school students, middle school students? Like, what's kind of your approach there? Because getting, the results that you're seeing to attend these events is pretty impressive. I think a lot of marketers struggle with getting people to events. And so I'm curious, like, what your approach is. I know you said you have another team now dedicated a little bit more, so might not be asking the right person, but loves you.
No, we could. Well, hopefully as a director, I kind of keep half an eye on all the things that are going on. But no, I think for all those markets, especially, the high school markets and those younger ages that come to Experience Day and the tours, partnership is so huge. So we have really strong partnerships with our area high schools. We have really strong partnerships with the middle and elementary schools and other influencers like guidance counselors and those things. And especially at that elementary and that middle school level, they crave these tours, and it's almost like word of mouth. Once you deliver like a great tour experience or whether it's Experience Day, once you deliver that for one school, word gets around, and we have a really good reputation. We also have done a great job. There's a lot of direct marketing that's involved in this. So, for our high school market, we do, a number of, whether it's direct mail to parents or to students, but parents are pretty much going to read it, whether it's email marketing, We have email newsletters for parents and also high school counselors. All of that, it might not be building a campaign around a high school open house, but it's a number of things we do to connect with those folks throughout the year. And then we make the high school open house a very important part of that messaging. And then, really for both Experience Day and the high school open house and any event that we do, having that really effective landing page where somebody can come and they can RSVP, and then having them in that communication flow post RSVP. So they know what to expect when they get there. They can refer somebody else to come to the event, whatever it might be, is so critical. So it's multi-level, multi-layered. I mean, there's a lot of direct, and of course we do organic, unpaid social media. We have done some paid, for instance, Facebook targeting parents. I don't know how much of that we're doing actually now, but it really just becomes, we see that. So we'll take an experience like the high school open house or Destination Harper or Experience Day, and we'll make that kind of a lead message in marketing that we're doing to those audiences through partnerships, through direct marketing, email and mail. Again, good, clean landing pages that allow me to learn more about it. And now that we've built up that reputation for Experience Day, especially in the tours, people ask for it. If we're not out there right away with information about it, the audience says, "Hey, when are you going to put the schedule up for Experience Day? When are you going to?" It's so cool because we still have printed schedules at Experience Day, so you show up on that Saturday and you can see all the things that are going on in all the labs. But we put it up as a PDF or a printable HTML before the event, and folks will walk in having printed it out, circle what they want to do.
Wow.
So it's just, again, the experience starts before they even arrive.
That's amazing. Day. And you mentioned like RSVPing to events and stuff. Are there some tools you're using to help create this foundation a little bit easier on your end?
So for things that aren't totally enrollment tied, so right now we do have a CRM in our enrollment services area, and it's built on Salesforce. And so they have their own forms for those things because they need to manage those flows. For things like Experience Day, for things like the school tours, things like that may not be directly tied to trying to get a student to apply. Then we typically, one of the tools we use is FormStack. That's been our form builder on that end, and you can embed the forms on your landing page or whatever else it might be. So and again, there are a lot of other tools out there. It's not an endorsement for them one way or the other, but I think having a good secure RSVP form builder that can again go into a database. We do use Marketing Cloud, Salesforce's Marketing Cloud for our email marketing. So contacts will go into there, and then we'll do follow-up emails or that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking.
No, yeah, I was just curious. Yep, no, that's exactly what I was asking. Thank you. That's fantastic. And so it sounds like when you're really, I'm just kind of what I'm hearing is if you're really starting out with experience marketing and developing these huge, campaigns and events that we just talked about, looking forward to create that compounding effect is something like, going back to developing the brand, it takes some time, right? And so, but the fruits just continue once that recognition is made and the continuation happens.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gets back to that whole access, usability, and relevance. What's going to get me as an adult learner, prospective learner, what's going to get me to show up on a Tuesday night? You drive through suburban Chicago traffic to show up there. So is it an engaging speaker? Is it free speed career coaching? Is it, what's the hook and what's the value proposition? And usually it's a mixture of things. We've done really well when we've had a speaker or two, when we've had free resume critiques, when we've had, people really want to meet your faculty. They really want to, for a program like if they're interested in law enforcement, they love to come and talk to the law enforcement faculty. If they, if they're interested in science, they want to meet our science, our health careers folks. And sometimes in marketing, I think we can act as a filter, or I should say marketing and enrollment services, or a gatekeeper. And I really think it's great just to connect. And we're very fortunate at Harper that we have so many faculty that are willing to, participate in these kinds of events. One event that, funny, it's interesting, an event that we just started and we're getting ready to do the second version, kind of for our current students, is called Enrollment Day. And basically, it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck day. Really, it lasts a week, where we just kind of remind students of the benefits of enrolling early and try to help them, give them a lot of kind of concierge or really high touch service on how to remove any barriers they might have, whether it's paying a bill or whether it's trying to find financial aid or make their schedule work. So we did the first enrollment day in the fall for, I think it was for spring semester, and we're getting ready to do one now for during this semester for summer. And again, the reason I brought it up was, incredible faculty involvement. Our advisors are involved. Our financial aid admissions personnel are involved, and we build marketing around that. And again, we have a really talented person in student communication who we work with, who and a lot of what we do to communicate it streams into things that she's already doing to reach those students. But it's taking that experience and using it as a high value proposition. Here's why you want to come that day. Here's why you want to pay attention that week. Here are the benefits of applying early or enrolling early, and how we can help. And it doesn't hurt to have food and drawings and those kinds of things. But it's just it made our students think differently about enrolling, because usually it's just we're sending them reminders. What if we created an experience out of it? And I don't have the numbers for that in front of me, but it was successful enough that we're doing it again, and we're already thinking about the one we're going to do in summer for fall. So,
and I'm going to take a clip of that last bit and just share it out, because I think that's highly impactful, because I think re-enrollment is a huge issue right now in higher ed. So thank you for sharing that. So Mike, I was wondering, where can our audience connect with you and reach out to you if they want to learn more about what you're up to and what you're doing, or what Harper is doing?
Absolutely. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. You can find me by my name, basically Mike Barzacchini. It's hard to spell, but hopefully it'll be on the screen, or you can find it somewhere. And you can also, I have a blog at MikeBarzacchini.com. Now, fair warning, you'll find marketing information there, but you'll also maybe find me writing about our 4 rescue dogs, our pack. You might find me sharing photos of the moon. I'm kind of an obsessive photographer of the moon. So you might see other things there, but I do mix a little marketing content in there. But, and shoot me an email, at my Harper College address, or through a LinkedIn message. I love it. As you might be able to tell, I'm very enthusiastic about this topic. I love to talk about this. And, one of the things, which I know we're closing up on time, but I'm really invested in the next generation of leaders in this field and folks that are entering this field. It's so important. And one of the things that I do through volunteering through CASE is, I've been able to be active in the Summer Institute for Marketing and Communications the past 5 or 6 years. And that's just, where we get people that are, new to the profession or new to the industry, and work with them in a variety of ways to try to, to make them feel, great about the decision they've made and prepared for what's coming next. And that's just one example. I still talk with and mentor folks that, I've come across years ago. I love having conversations about this topic. I'm learning every day. So anybody that's out there, I look forward to learning from you too. But please connect. I'd love to.
Fantastic.
And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Definitely.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having, thanks so much for joining. And it was great having you on. And I love listening to you too. So I know you love to talk about it, but I love talking to you about it. It's fantastic. Great. Well, thanks so much for listeners again for tuning in. Please catch us on the next one. And of course, if you're looking for an interactive map, event solution, or virtual tour, please reach out to concept3d.com. Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks, everyone.